This is Brad, coming back with more pickled punks.
What I would do is I would find one person that I trusted the most, and I would, no, not you, Brian.
No.
Anyone, just not Brian.
And then I would make a pact with them, and I would say, hey, man,
Hey,
things are fucked. Like, I don't even know if you're the same person that showed up at the party at the beginning, but here's the deal. Your ass might come up here. Your fourth or fifth version of yourself might come up here and do something stupid. Me too, and I get it. But we're here right now, and we have to be the only person here at the end of the night. So let's make a pact that if yourself shows up, we're gonna kill that jerk. And if my person shows up, we're gonna kill him too.
I hope it doesn't pick me.
And we're not leaving the framing of this house. I can't trust anyone else because it's too much of a variable concept that I got to pick one person.
Why do you have to kill the other person?
Because what Jim was sort of saying earlier, when I kind of started to agree, and you said as well, is that like, okay, so John 2 shows up, version 1006 of different, realities, and he got in his harebrained mind that it's a good idea to come in here, maybe because his life will be better or because of who knows what, but it doesn't matter.
He's a crack whore in the other version?
Because if he shows up, he's going to ruin my life into the future. So I don't want him to be around. So we'll strangle him and then show him my scrotum.
So you're missing a whole possibility here when you said that. So you're at this party with all of these people, and you have now realized that by simply walking through the dark area, you can arrive in another possible existence that only varies by a matter of maybe hours. And you've always hated this person, and you always wanted to just shit on their parade. You could literally tie him to a chair and take a big shit on him, and then just walk across the street and be in a reality where you didn't shit on him.
That's true, but
so you're what you could do in your current area that you're standing in is pretty much unlimited, because you could escape all consequences by just walking across the street. But then you also have to worry about the person who just walked across the street. What did they do in their reality before they came over here?
I'm not that vindictive. So for me, it's like I would, if I don't like this person, then I will just stop hanging out with them. I have no need to shit on their face. Like,
well, I'm just saying that in the context of the movie, each character has also been given an ultimate power of change, and the one character at the end does try to change their situation by just walking across the street. But on the other hand, it also gives you the ability to escape just by walking across the street.
Yeah.
So from a character development standpoint, well, the one guy who threatened himself and then beat himself up, and I guess in one reality, all of him was tied into chairs. It's, people react differently.
So if it was like historically varied, so if it was like Back to the Future 2, where I go to another time zone and or another time reality, I guess, and like I could find myself being
It's 4 o'clock here. It's 5 o'clock over there.
and I could find myself in a totally different situation, and I could kill myself and inherit that process. Sure, but we're talking about a 4 or 6 hour process or time window. Not much is going to change in that window. So.
And it has a lot to do with this movie, is this group had, again, there was a very intertwined group. There was a lot of interaction between them. Well, like the one guy sleeping with the other guy's wife, they had a lot of skeletons in their closet, but they were kind of keeping it together as a group of friends because nobody really talked about it. And she found that one reality at the end where everybody was still holding the time bomb of their friendship together.
Got it.
So that particular group had a lot of reason to, okay, oh my God, did I just say that? He revealed inadvertently that he had slept with the guy's wife. And he could have just said, oh, well, fuck, I'm just going to go across the street, see if the house across the street has run into that situation yet, and then I'll just keep my mouth quiet over there, after smashing the other me in the head with a toilet seat.
So you're suggesting, and I would agree at this point, is that if there's a million different realities, a lot could change in a 4-hour window.
Well, if you have a lot of history with the group that has not necessarily been shared with the entire group, then there's a lot of opportunity in that 4-hour window for things to be said or things to come up under stress that you would have wished that hadn't been done. And you could solve the problem by crossing the street.
Another way of looking at this is that very little would have changed. I mean, people have deep trends to their personality, and group interactions have historical ways of operating. I don't think that in one version I'm going to spill my soul about what I did to your ex, and in another version I'm not. I think that in most versions will probably be very similar, don't you think? Like 10,000 Nights, how this podcast could have gone. I mean, I think there's not going to be one where Brad and I are at each other's throats. We're just not those kind of people.
Well, and again, this particular group had a lot of history. There was the making out with the ex-girlfriend. You know, say there's a 50-50 chance of him making out with the ex-girlfriend or not making out with the ex-girlfriend. That means in a million different states, there's 500,000 times he did it and 500,000 times he didn't over that 4-hour stretch, which would have a pretty severe reaction for the rest of those hours. And the one drunk actor, Xander from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, he was a freaking mess to begin with, and he was completely unpredictable. So the different things, and in most of the alternate realities she walked through involved him either being fighting each other or tied up in a chair, or he was the wild card, the loose cannon was setting everything off. In fact, if it hadn't been for him, then it would have been a mundane situation for everybody, because it was his note that really started the yelling and screaming. Yeah,
like one lady just napped. Not much is happening when you're napping. Okay, so if I think we can summarize what people would do. I don't think James has answered, but I say the last thing I would suggest is that if...
I said I'd stay on the couch.
Oh, right. Okay, so what I would suggest is that if this bubble happened in a different environment with more variables, you might see a different outcome. So you're at a dinner party, which is with friends, so historical information that may be volatile, may not be volatile, but generally speaking with people that you know, if, say, for instance, this took place, I don't know, at a more diverse situation, like at a huge party, or like at I don't know, some other sort of like dynamic event, you might see more outcomes.
At the same time, I mean, there's trends in personality, and we have codes of behavior in our culture, and even people who are unpredictable are probably going to be unpredictable in a similar fashion. He's going to go nuts and plot how to beat himself up in the other house in all those other universes. I don't think there's going to, people aren't, it's not that people are predictable, but people aren't like a dice roll. We're not going to ever encounter a situation where suddenly I'm walking on the ceiling, or suddenly I'm crawling on my hands and knees.
That was the previous movie.
It's, there's expectations of behavior that are embedded in our culture, in our personal history, and my personality, that are going to think of all the times we've done this. They've all been a lot the same.
Yeah, so I'm suggesting in a micro social circle of a dinner party of 8, you're going to only have so many outcomes. Now broaden that to a party of 100 people. So now you have 100 more variables. There's a bunch more social dynamics. There's a lot more going on that's not just like those 8 people. So it's like maybe there's one guy who you don't know that well at this party who for a split second thought about stabbing somebody. And he's at a million different universes. He decided stabbing was a good idea. And now you've introduced...
I like stabbing.
Now you've
stabbing is good.
So every time you broaden the scope and introduce more social elements or more people, you up the ante of variables. That's what I was sort of saying, is that if it was over a bigger scope or a larger scope of individuals, then the variables go up and your chances of reacting differently go up.
You also have to throw in the factor that, 1, you're trapped in a small area, and 2, you've just found out that there's multiple versions of yourself. So you have a certain set of standards, a certain set of rules, a certain set, but this is some added stressors into the situation of, I can't leave this immediate vicinity. If I try to, then I'm going to end up in another potential reality, and I'm not the only me out there. I would think that would kind of mess with a lot of people's heads.
Yeah, there's a feedback loop that changes everyone's odds of behaving a certain way.
It'd be kind of like talking into a microphone that's too close to a speaker. If all of you got out into the street and tried to say something at the same time, but were maybe a microsecond off, then it would be like a audio explosion.
So, in summary, before we move to the next point, I'm going to befriend one person at the party that I know primarily, and buncle.
But how do you know?
down.
How do you know when you make that pact that he's not already someone who's broken into the house?
And
I think he's saying it doesn't matter.
That's a good point. It doesn't even matter because if he's broken into a new house and he knows that, then actually the argument might be easier to make. Is that like you're not even a primary person here, so like you've already subjected yourself to all the variables, and you're like a loose cannon right now because you decided coming out here was a good idea. So your secondary person is, or many persons are going around being spazzes.